Today, we explore one of the greatest works of non-fiction ever written about power, cities, and political authority, The Power Blogger, written by Lowell Callow and published in 1974. On more than 1,300 pages, the book tells the story of the single man about Lowell Moses. Moses was never elected to public office. Yet for more than 4 decades, he shaped the physical structure of New York City more than any mayor or governor. He built 13 bridges, 7 tunnels, hundreds of miles of highways, Jones Beach, Lincoln Center, public housing complexes, entire expressway systems. But the book is not simply a biography. It is an investigation into how power actually works in modern cities. Callow asks a fundamental question: how could one unelected official accumulate such an enormous authority over the largest city in the United States? To answer the question, the book traces Moses' rise, his consolidation power, and the profound consequences of his urban vision. The story reveals the hidden mechanism of political power, control over money, institutions, and infrastructure. By the end, the reader understands something essential. In cities, who control infrastructure often controls the future. The author, Lowell Callow, is widely regarded as one of the greatest investigative journalists of the 20th century. Before writing The Power Blogger, he worked as a reporter at the Newsday. While covering the politics on Long Island, Callow repeatedly encountered references to Lowell Moses. Moses seemed to control almost every major infrastructure decision, yet very few people actually understood how they held the power. Callow began investigating. The research process took 7 years. He conducted hundreds of interviews and studied thousands of documents. The result was an extraordinary book that won the Pulitzer Prize for Biography or Autobiography in 1975. But more importantly, it became a landmark work in political history and urban studies. The story begins with the early life of Lowell Moses. Moses was born in New York City in 1888 into a wealthy family. He attended the elite institutions, including Yale University, and later studied political science at Oxford University. Early in his career, Moses believed strongly in government reform. He was part of the Progressive Era movement that sought to eliminate corruption and modernize the government administration. At first, Moses was an idealist. He wrote reports proposing civil service reforms and more efficient public administration. But these proposals were ignored by the political establishment. Frustrated by the slow pace of the reform, Moses gradually shifted his strategy. Instead of trying to reform institutions from the outside, he would capture power within his system itself. The decision marked the beginning of one of the most extraordinary careers in urban history. The turning point came when Moses gained control of the Long Island State Park Commission. Through this position, he began building state parks and parkways across Long Island. These parkways were revolutionary. Unlike traditional highways, they were designed as scenic roads integrated with landscapes and recreation. But they also served another purpose. They allowed Moses to create an independent financial structure. By establishing the public authorities, Moses gained control over enormous revenue streams from toll bridges. This was the key to his power. Public authorities operated outside normal democratic oversight. They could issue bonds, collect tolls, and fund massive infrastructure projects without needing approval from city councils. As long as the authorities remained financially solvent, Moses retained control. This financial autonomy allowed him to build enormous projects, including the Tolibolo Bridge, now known as the Lower F. Kennedy Bridge. Once the toll revenue began flowing, Moses possessed something extremely powerful, an independent source of money. From that point forward, his influence expanded rapidly. Over the next several decades, Lowell Moses reshaped the physical structure of the New York City. His accomplishments were enormous. He built hundreds of miles of highways, dozens of parks. Some of the most famous projects include Johns Beach State Park, Cross Bronx Expressway, Belazzono, the Narrows Bridge. These projects transformed the metropolitan region. They enabled suburban expansion and automobile mobility on an unprecedented scale. McCullough shows that Moses' project also had deep social consequences. Entire neighborhoods were demolished to make way of the highways. Communities, often poor or minority communities, were displaced. The Cross Bronx Expressway, for example, cut directly through dense urban neighborhoods, leading to massive displacement and urban decline. Moses believed strongly in the future of the automobile. Public transportation received far less support under his leadership. As a result, the urban infrastructure of New York became deeply shaped by car-oriented planning. One of the central themes of the power broker is the nature of political power. Carlo argues that power reveals character. As he famously writes, power doesn't always collapse, but power always reveals. In Moses' early career, he presented himself as a reformer and public servant. But as his authority grew, his decision-making became increasingly authoritarian. He ignored community opposition. He bypassed democratic institutions. He concentrated decision-making within his own offices. Carlo's deeper insight is that Moses' power didn't come from charisma or elections. It came from control over institutions and financial structures. The authorities Moses controlled, especially the Tolibolo Bridge Authority, generated the billions of dollars in the revenue. Whoever controlled the revenue control infrastructure, and whoever controlled infrastructure shaped the city itself. By the 1960s, opposition to Moses' project began to grow. Urban activists, community groups, and planners increasingly criticized highway construction. One of the most important opponents was Jane Jacobs, author of The Death and Life of the Great American Cities. Jacobs and other activists helped to stop several highway projects that Moses had planned through Lower Manhattan. Gradually, Moses' political alliances weakened. In 1968, he finally lost control of the Tolibolo Bridge Authority, ending his decades-long dominance over New York infrastructure. More than 50 years after its publication, The Power Broker remains one of the most important books ever written about cities. It shows that urban form is not just a matter of the design. It is a matter of the power, institutions, and politics. Bridges, highways, and parks are not neutral objects. They are the physical expression of political decisions. For architects, planners, and urban designers, the lesson is clear. To understand cities, we must understand how power operates behind the scenes. Because in the end, the people who control infrastructure often control the shape of the city itself. And as Lowell Carlo shows in this extraordinary book, the story of cities is also the story of the power. Thanks for watching, and I hope this summary helps you, and allows you to read actual text and learn more about it. And still, we just halfway up the ladder of the knowledge of modern architecture, art, philosophy, and design. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.